Listen to that. Wow. These commercials are awful. I'm sorry, folks. This is YouTube for you. Shithole. So there you go. There was RFK at the Arizona rally after he had conceded. He did his own speech. He conceded, and then he was a special guest at Trump's rally. And RFK is a Democrat. I don't agree with everything that he says. I don't support the Democrats in any way, shape, or form. I never vote for them anymore because they're all about the destruction of this country. They hate the regular legal citizens of this country, and they lean completely towards the freakos and the mentally ill that are the primary part of their base. But I like some of the things that RFK says, especially with the healthy food and the healthy children. The more I learn about the crap that is in our food and plastic bottles and everything else, the more there's no doubt in my mind the reason there's so many cancer cases. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself why? Why does everyone get cancer? We just happen to have these rogue genes going bad in our body and start killing us from the inside out for no particular reason. It's just this thing running rampant. Or is it what we're ingesting, what we're drinking out of, these chemicals that are in our air, our water, and our food? And we absolutely need something like that. One of my goals when I grow the show, each show or political podcaster or whatever, they tend to lean towards something they feel strongly about, right? One show might do the troops. One show might be homeless veterans. Another one might be, finding adoption agencies or stuff for kids, right? Mine, when I grow this to a larger base and I can really put it out there, is to support farmers and local farmers. I want a push to going back to growing natural food and feeding Americans with natural food, not this processed or chemical shit that we're getting in the store and pumping into ourselves and pumping into our kids. So for that portion, I like RFK's message. And now he's backing Trump, and I think that's important. That's a big deal. And I think we're going to get an extra voter base with him supporting Trump. So I'm happy to have him. I'm happy to have his supporters there. I kind of like what he has to say. So he's a valuable ally. I'll go with that. So now moving on to Comrade Kamala, who is changing her views and policies and the things she wants to do faster than you and I change underwear. So first, and there's a video I have here where this is one of Trump's campaign videos that he just recently released. And it's Kamala debating Kamala. So it's Kamala saying one thing on this side, this is bad, this is wrong, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. And then the other side saying, the Biden-Harris regime, we did good, this is what we did. So Trump came up with no tax for tips, which is a huge, I don't know why any servers, waitresses, anyone can hate Trump over this. It should actually be a carrion call for them to say, I'm going to vote for Trump. Kamala tried to steal this, and she's claiming that she's going to do the same thing. But Trump was the first one, and he said, no more tax on tips. So you hardly make anything if you're a waitress or a server, right? Or anywhere else where tips are involved. You get less than minimum wage because it's a tip derived job. So you primarily make your money off tips. But then if you're trying to be legal, right, and you don't want the IRS coming after you, you're supposed to be claiming all that at the end of the year, keeping track of it and everything you've made. But that's going to end up being money out of your pocket when you're filing your taxes. Now Trump's saying you don't have to do that. Another great policy, but Kamala's stealing it. And then she says, well, now she wants to be the border czar, right? The media turned around and said she was never the border czar, even though the media was calling her the border czar, and Biden called her his border czar, and she was supposed to take care of the border, and she never went ever and never did anything. They just said it as a thing. So now she really wants to be the border czar now that she's running. So she's decided that she wants to be tough on the border. She wants to build more border wall, and she wants to shut that thing down. And everyone has to be, she's got this communist agenda. Everyone has to be equal, and everyone, you're going to get paid the same. You're going to have the same apartment. You're going to have the same TV. She's got this weird communist agenda, but she's flip-flopping a lot, and she's just trying to cater to the masses and the working class of all the things she's allegedly going to do. You know, they're going to do rent control. New York is already trying to push this as well. So, or no evictions, right? New York did this, and I don't know if this is part of her policy, but it wouldn't surprise me if it comes up that way. But New York did essentially an almost a no evictions program. So there's a whole bunch of additional criteria and loopholes that property owners have to jump through in order to evict a tenant. It's gotten more and more difficult there, and raising their prices on their tenants that are living there. They have to meet some criteria for that too. It has to be less than a certain percentage a year, or if you go over that, you can't get any tax breaks or any of this other stuff. And this is one of the things you might be saying to yourself, "Well, that's great. I can't get evicted. That's good news. What are you talking about?" And these other policies, you're saying that I rent control, or you're going to give me 25 grand to get my house and all that. These all sound like good things to me. What are you talking about? The Democrats commonly make changes like this to help the taxpayer, help the little guy, so that things are better for them. But the problem is the economy is like its own separate entity, so it's going to react in a different way when you forcefully enact these things on the on the people who own property, or companies that are giving home loans. When you force it on them, they will find another workaround in order to make up for the lapse, because a landlord isn't going to be able to get rid of a very bad tenant. And while they're trying to do this in this really convoluted process, the tenant is trashing the place and doing negative things against them. So now they finally get the person out, and eventually, at some point, it goes through court and they get the person out. They don't end up having to pay anything, because you'd have to chase them again additionally in court to get any money out of them whatsoever, and you're not going to get blood from a stone, right? And now your unit has been trashed too, because the people were like, well, fuck the owner and fuck all this. So it ends up hurting the community, because less people are going to be they're not going to be interested in buying properties. They're not going to be interested in becoming landowners or landlords, because the chances are high that you're going to get screwed when it comes down to having to deal something with like a bad tenant, or a tenant that can't afford things anymore, and you've been trying to work with them. But this is always a Democrats thing. Also, taking the minimum wage and putting it higher and higher and higher, right? These are kind of low-level jobs that you go in just to do it, right? You're making hamburgers at McDonald's or Burger King. You're working the window at a Walgreens or a CVS, and you're handing somebody their prescription. Unless you're the pharmacist themselves, is delving everything out and make sure everything's safe. Yes, you're getting a higher rate of pay for all that. If you're just kind of one of the other lackeys, you're not getting that, and what you're doing reflects your pay. So when you jack it up to the community in order to because you have to meet a requirement as the business owner to pay your employees more because of some Democratic plan, they're making hardly anything or next to nothing in a lot of circumstances, especially if it's a small business or a medium-sized business. So what do you have to do? You have to figure out how to make up your losses somewhere. So you have to pass the extra charges on to your consumers. Now you've got an angry shopping base that's going, why is my food cost more? Why do my prescription cost more? Or why do you have less hours? Because you let go of staff because of all this stuff. And this is the Democrats trying to put up kind of that fog where we're helping the taxpayer and the worker, but all of these decisions end up having adverse consequences. So they're not as simple as they seem. You can say, well, how can you argue with paying people more money for the job they're doing? Yes, I agree. I agree with that. The person that's working at McDonald's should be able to live some sort of normal life where they're not struggling and they're trying to figure out, well, do I pay my rent or do I put food on the table? But at the same time, how do you do that while maintaining your business of making hamburgers and French fries, and you're paying this person $25 an hour to be a lame worker, or just half-ass their way through the day, and just serve some food to people, and then you're paying a whole bunch for it and hardly making anything on the other side. But the Democrats always want you to focus on the emotional. That's what they are. They're the emotional for everything. So this video is going viral right now. Here's Kamala debating herself. So on the left is her running for office right now. On the right is her as just regular vice president, not running, and talking about how great the campaign's doing. So this is Sky News adding this recent official Trump campaign. The ad titled "The Great Debate" contrasts her previous comments on the economy under Biden's leadership, suggesting contradictions in her stance. And she has. Everything she's been talking about now has been a contradiction of everything that she's talking about. Social media reacted to the brutal ad from the Trump campaign. The Trump ad shows Kamala debating with herself, previous comments on the economy and leadership. Kamala, everyday prices too high, food, gas, rent, back to school clothes. Kamala, that is Bidenomics. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics, Kamala too. Bidenomics is working. Shit music off. Someone, Steve Turley says, brilliant. Kamala Harris is her own worst enemy. And that's true because this is what's happening. She's going out and campaigning now as Trump just unleashed a genius ad of Kamala Harris debating herself. Each clip shows her saying something, and the follow clip shows her disagreeing with herself. Voters will be seeing Comrade Kamala exposed as a flip-flopper. So this is what's happening. Joe Biden is unfit for office completely. This is why he stepped down, and this is why he's not running anymore. But he's still remaining as president, even though he should have been 25th Amendmented by now, because his brain is expired oatmeal. He's no longer capable of doing the job. So what they're doing is Kamala's running for office, and she is trying, despite the fact that it's the Biden-Harris regime, she's trying to distance herself from Joe at this point, as all the other Democrats are. They hailed him as a hero for stepping down and getting out of the way. You know, they put the knife in his back and they shoved him to the side. He was a very bad guy when he wouldn't step down. Now he's a hero of the Republic now that he did step down. And Kamala is trying to run as a brand new human being you've never seen before. She just walked into the door as a 40-year-old woman. Who is this new magical person that no one's neither seen nor heard of? And the problem is she does have a history. She has a history of not knowing what she's doing, making bad decisions, sleeping her way into political office, not gaining anything out of any actual proper effort that she's put in. And then she is a DEI hire, even though the Democrats hate that being said now. Biden came out and specifically said when he was running for office, I want a black woman. She is a DEI hire. They can distance themselves from that as much as they want, but it's exactly what she is. Now, she's trying to run against the policies of her own regime. I call them the regime because they're corrupt. They hate America. They've tried to force us into things that we don't want to do. Experimental jabs in your arm, or you can lose your job. This is what tyrants and dictators do. So it's the regime as far as I'm concerned. But now she's trying to run, and this is what this video is emphasizing here. She's trying to run as well. These gas prices and food prices are so high, and this is crazy. And then about 5 minutes ago, she was saying Bidenomics is working. Everything's better for the American people. Jobs are better. Food is better. Gas is better. And not one of those things is true. The jobs report just came out, 188 million jobs down because they lied about it or made a huge mistake. So no, all of these jobs are not being filled. They've been lying and fudging the numbers up to this point about the jobs. So there was Bidenomics, which is destroying the country. People are losing their apartments. People are losing their homes, so they can't even get a home. And they can barely put food on the table and gas in their car. And she's talking about how bad this is while being the current crew in office. So they've had 4 years to not only address all of this in real time as it's happening, but to make fixes that benefit the American people. Instead, they've just been pushing an LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign agenda and allowing 3 different conflicts or 2 different conflicts and one that's about to pop off all over the world, and putting us into ever closer to a world war. This is what she's done. She's trying to escape the policies, but she is in bed with all of the policies. There are pictures of you with your arm around it, thumbs up, smiling. So she's bullshitting in saying she has nothing to do with all of this. And she's flip-flopping, again, like I mentioned earlier, about the border. She wants to be strong on the border now. She wants to do no tax for tips too. So they're having this back and forth about the presidential debate. She keeps claiming that that Trump is too scared to debate her. And Trump keeps saying, no, I'm willing to debate. Let's just hash out the rules. And then she keeps changing everything. Now she doesn't want closed off mics. She wants open mics. So she can do her strong girl and go, excuse me, I'm talking. This bullshit like she's Mrs. in charge. She wants open mics for that. And her campaign is hoping that Trump will trip on himself if they're having this debate. She doesn't want to go on Fox. She only wants it on ABC or MSNBC, the left-wing networks. And he had already agreed previously to debates with Joe Biden, and J.D. Vance was going to debate Kamala. Now that's all up in the air, so we're going to see how that all changes. But she talks about being tough, and she's going to go headlong into debating and fighting with Trump. But they keep coming up with different rules, different requests, and different stuff in skirting the whole issue. So this is Forbes. So the No Tax on Tips Act implications and reservations. So Senator Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, introduced the No Tax on Tips Act in the Senate, a bill co-sponsored by Senators Daines, Republican, and Kramer, Scott. The bill proposes an amendment to the Internal Revenue Code to exempt cash tips from income tax through a deduction available to all taxpayers. The act aims to alleviate the tax burden on workers that rely heavily on tips, but it also raises implications and potential reservations worth exploring. It's good that they're pushing it now because it takes it out of Kamala's hands. Now, if she or her fellow Democrats try to vote against this push by the Republicans, you're going to be shown one more sign that the Democratic Party is full of shit. They're not willing to follow through with any of the promises they want to make. But this is why Forbes is saying that the no tax on tips could be a bad thing. And of course, it's going to be less tax revenue and all that bullshit. But the Act's primary function is to create a new Section 224 of the Internal Revenue Code, which would allow taxpayers to deduct the amount of cash tips received from their income. This deduction would apply to both itemizers and non-itemizers. It would also not be treated as a miscellaneous itemized deduction and would therefore bypass limitations that apply to other deductions, such as the so-called 2% floor. If passed, the new Section 224 would apply to taxable years beginning after December 31st, 2024. The act would provide relief to service industry workers, cash tips from a significant portion of total income for many in the hospitality and service sectors by allowing these workers to deduct their cash tips in their entirety. The act would increase their disposable income and could potentially improve their financial stability. Additionally, it would provide an administrative burden boon to workers relying on tips. Reporting and paying taxes on tips can be cumbersome and lead to underreporting and subsequent penalties. A streamlined process would make it easier for taxpayers to comply with tax laws and avoid additional fines and fees. Now, the reservations. Notwithstanding the positive effects to tip-reliant workers, the Act has the potential to deleteriously affect federal tax review. Tips constitute a substantial amount of income for many workers. How many are actually being honest about what they made? And exempting that broad swath of income could lead to a significant reduction in tax revenue. Generally speaking, losses in revenue necessitate adjustments in other areas, be they increased taxes elsewhere or reduced public spending. So what they're insinuating here in Forbes is if we do this deal for no tax for tips for service workers, that the rest of us could be passed on to us, and we could see our overall tax rate increase in order to give them this thing. This is what the scaremongering they're trying to do. When the solutions are simple, we could stop funding stupid wars like in Ukraine and actually save our money. We could stop wasting taxpayers' dollars in multiple other places and save ourselves billions. You don't have to put the burden on the taxpayers. More abstract effects include the equitability and fairness of exempting tips, but doing nothing to improve the standing of other low-income workers who do not receive tips. But many nonetheless may be living on the same or less income. Retail employees, for example, would not benefit from this reduction, and may be placed in a comparatively worse position as against their hospitality and service worker counterparts. There are also potential avenues for abuse. The Act requires tips be included on statements furnished to employers pursuant to Section 6053A, but ensuring accurate reporting of tips as against wages remains a challenge. It may incentivize employers to shift wages with the interests of both the employee and the employer aligning in a preferable tax treatment for tips. So them finding a way to skirt it. Once again, all the bitching that's coming from, Forbes and then basically the IRS or the government is people are going to find out ways to make this work for them and potentially to have a better life. And they're going to have to find a way to counteract that and fuck the rest of us over. That's essentially what it's saying. So moving on to one of the next things for Kamala, as I brought up, Kamala used to think the border wall was un-American. Now she supports it. Vice President Kamala Harris has reversed her position on spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a wall along the southern border, Axios reported Tuesday. Harris is now in favor of building a wall after being attacked repeatedly by former President Donald Trump for presiding over an unprecedented surge in illegal immigration to the U.S. as a Biden administration's unofficial border czar, according to Axios. Prior to her second run for the presidency, Harris called the border wall un-American, a stupid waste of money, and Trump's medieval vanity project. Harris now backs the bipartisan border bill proposed on Friday, which would require hundreds of millions of unspent public dollars to be spent on further construction of a border wall, according to Axios. The office of Republican Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, one of the lawmakers who negotiated the bill, projected that the bill would spend $650 million on wall construction, a far cry from the $18 billion that Trump wanted for the border wall in 2018. Here's her recent. Her fucking voice. Years of law enforcement and the fucking stuck up California bitch nasally talk. It drives me nuts. The flip-flop on the border is the latest instance of Harris and her team distancing the vice president from left-wing positions she previously endorsed, such as banning fracking and supporting Medicare for all healthcare system. The Harris campaign has made an effort to present Harris as tough on crime and somewhat hawkish on the border in recent weeks, with one advertisement released earlier in August depicting images of Trump's border wall while a narrator speaks about her record as a border state prosecutor. None of that is true. The Harris campaign has noted that the failed border bill, which would have permitted an average of 5,000 migrants per day to cross the border, does not include any new money for building a wall and contains other provisions, such as additional money to pay for asylum attorneys and judges, according to Axios. That's what they did. They said that they were sending extra resources to the border. And what they did was they sent a bunch of paper pushers, and they freed up a couple border agents to actually go on the border, and then the troops that came in, or the assistants or the ICE members that came in, were just essentially processing people, doing paperwork, giving them their free cell phone, and sending them into the interior of the United States to maybe or maybe not show up for a judge. Kamala's record proves she is pro-open border. She called the wall un-American, a waste of taxpayer money, medieval, and said it isn't going to stop illegal immigration. Caroline Leavitt, national press secretary for the Trump campaign, said in a statement shared with the Daily Caller News Foundation, as a senator, Kamala tried to block President Trump's construction of the border wall. As border czar, Kamala Harris halted construction of the border wall. Kamala's actions speak much louder than the words of the anonymous staff she is cowering behind. So, again, another one of her policies she's flip-flopping on that she has no intention of doing. She's trying to play as like this moderate communist. It's a very odd approach that she's doing. She's trying to be everything for everybody. She wants to kowtow to the leftist radicals if it's possible. She's losing some of them because she's talking about support for Israel. So she's losing them. She's trying to appeal to the moderates who like the Democrats, but they also want border control and they also want no tax on tips and other common sense things like that. So she has no policy. She's literally one of the ones that licks her finger, put it up, see where the wind blows and try and blow in that direction. But she's trying to blow herself, no pun intended, in about 50 different directions, and then ending up with not really having a policy, or a policy that mirrors your opponent because they had it before you did. You did. So that's not really earning her much in this. And she's supposed to be doing an interview at some time in some place, of course, with ABC or 60 Minutes or whatever it is. And it'll be softballs that are tossed to her. And she may or may not talk about the things that she wants. So moving on to our final thing here. No, we've also got the IDF rescuing more hostages. Zuckerpuke, Biden and Harris repeatedly pressured us to censor free speech. He's been coming out more and more and admitting that he was fucking us all over on Facebook, and he was censoring our stuff or deleting our accounts if we said certain things. Now this fucking Android-looking scumbag is coming out and saying, yeah, we did do all that. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerpuke said in a letter on Monday that the Biden-Harris administration repeatedly pressured his company, which includes Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp, and more, to censor content that has protected free speech. Zuckerpuke made the admission in a letter to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan this week, in which he said his goal moving forward was to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, because he already affected the election and helped the Democrats cheat the first time. He should be going to prison for that. Move forward to play one way or the other for any political party or ideology. He said he doesn't even want the appearance of playing a role and will not be making political contributions. Why is he a guy that has some morals now? Why didn't he have any of those morals in the last election when the Democrats cheated and stole the election from Trump? Why did he decide to find his balls and his morals now? In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content. We now know the COVID-19 shots are dangerous. You're a fool if you get it, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. He said in the letter, ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it, he continued. It's too fucking late. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. He said that the company made a mistake by temporarily demoting New York Post story during the 2020 election about Hunter Biden's laptop, which is 100% real. Those fake scumbags from the FBI and the Democrats tried to say it was Russian disinformation. It was his laptop, after officials falsely suggested that it was part of a Russian disinformation operation. It's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We're no fucking shit, moron. He said, we changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Yeah, do you guys remember when we were on when you were on Facebook and they hired these scumbags from Politico to be these fact checkers, and they were just putting their stupid little lying notes on anything that you would post. Oh, fact check only partially true because blah, blah, blah. These fucking scumbags were everywhere. I must have blocked like 50 of them. And now they're fine. Those shitbags, those lying pieces of shit is what they are. Traitors of the United States are finally gone. He said that he does not plan on making any political contributions during the cycle after he gave money to support electoral infrastructure in 2020 that led to accusations he was trying to help Democrats because of where the money was reportedly deployed. My goal is to be neutral and not to play a role one way or another, or to even appear to be playing a role, he said. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Well, congratulations on now figuring out how to not to be a shitbag now. All right, where are we at on the show? Get the fuck out of here. All right, 49 minutes in. So we're going to do our final story here. So the escalations have been increasing in Israel. They launched preemptive attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon. because they knew they were coming after their attacks in Iran. So people are all pissed off about it. Oh, look what Israel's doing. They're being preemptive, and they're getting ahead of the game and hitting them before they get showered with 500-watt rockets that the Patriot system is trying to take out. But and that's escalating there, and I'll be trying to get more information on what's going on. But in the meantime, the IDF does it again and rescues another hostage from Hamas, which the Biden regime has done jack shit to do. We can get a lesbian basketball player back from Russia, but we can't get that hates America. But we can't get American Jewish hostages out of the hands of Hamas and get them back home and where they to safety where they belong. On Tuesday, Israeli Defense Forces announced it had rescued another hostage who had been taken by the terrorist group Hamas on October 7th. Quad Farhan al-Qadi, a Buddhian Muslim, father of 11 children who worked as a security guard at a packing factory in Kibbutz Magen, lived near the southern city of Rahat. He was seized in the community of Miv Tahim. Try saying all this 5 times fast. The Times of Israel reported, adding, Al-Qaeda was found inside a tunnel by commandos of the Navy's elite Shiyat 13 unit. The operation was led by the IDF Southern Command, the Shin Bet Security Agency, and the IDF's 162nd Division. Today, the IDF and ISA rescued the hostage Quad Farhan al-Qadi, age 52, from Rahat, who was abducted by the Hamas terrorist organization into Gaza on October 7th. The IDF announced on X he is in stable medical condition and is being transferred for medical checks at a hospital. His family has been updated with the details, and the IDF is accompanying them. Israel security forces will continue to operate with all means to bring home the hostages. There's a picture of the gentleman there. Video showed al-Qadi's family running to meet him at Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. Jeez, we have to do the whole run? It's like the opening scene from the Olympics. Someone going to light a torch or blow something up or something? And you don't see him meeting the guy. It's them running to the gate to meet him from the plane. That was helpful. Thanks. I'm in tears at this video. The family of rescued Badoon hostage. I get the news and run to him at the hospital. All right, so they got another hostage, and that's good. And there's still more. And in the meantime, Dementia Joe, who could barely a newest report, he could barely get into a car. He got off the plane with the rest of his corrupt family, Hunter and all of them in tow, and he was shaking so bad he could barely get into the truck of the SUV of Secret Service. So the guy, he should be gone. He shouldn't be allowed to finish his term. And the Democrats are doing this to play their game, as they always do. So, all right. That's everything I've got for everybody today. I want to thank everybody for joining in. I did this a little differently. I live stream on, I try to multicast as best I can on YouTube, Rumble, and now X. And I'm trying to figure out how to make all of that work because it's difficult to multicast between all three. But, I'm a middle-aged white guy. I'm figuring it all out. So I'm going to do my best. Thanks for the support. I'm growing the page. We're at 105 people already. And I'm trying to get back to where I was because when I had it before the leftist purge, I had several thousand people that were part of my page. And now I'm literally starting over from scratch. So if you like the show, please share it and support it and tell your friends and family. Have them join as well to the Relief Valve Podcast. You can write into the show at reliefvalvepodcast@aol.com. And or even comment on the videos and say hi, a question or whatever it is. Go ahead and ask me while I'm live. I'm happy to answer a question and interact with the fans. All right, so I hope this went well. This is my first time going on X, so I'm hoping I didn't fuck this up. All right, thanks everyone, and I'll see you again for a live soon.